And continuing with our breaking news coverage of the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, we're getting so much reaction, yes, here stateside, but also in Venezuela.
Absolutely. Venezuela's Attorney General Tarek William Saab making televised remarks condemning the U.S. attack, saying that, quote, innocent victims have been mortally wounded and others killed by this criminal terrorist attack, calling for people to take to the streets with calm and vigilance. Saab also repeating the demands that other officials have made for proof that Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, were alive.
Yeah, a lot of Venezuelans demanding proof of life from both Nicolas and Celia. We're also getting some word from Attorney General Pam Bondi here. Remember, there was a $50 million bounty the DOJ put on Maduro's head here. Maduro, she says, and his wife, Celia, have been indicted in the Southern District of New York, saying Maduro has been charged with narco-terrorism conspiracy, cocaine importation conspiracy, possession of machine guns and destructive devices, and conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices against the United States. She says they will soon face the full wrath of American justice on American soil in American courts. So we are finally getting more and more details of the charges now levied against Maduro here. So I want to continue welcoming in more of our guests, more of our experts here, like former Special Presidential Envoy for Arms Control at the State Department and former Assistant Secretary General for Defense Investment with NATO, Marshall Billingslea, and former Trump National Security Council Chief of Staff and Executive Secretary Fred Fleitz. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us here. Marshall, we'll start with you. Your reaction to all of this. A lot of people are waking up right now. They're getting the news to the U.S., our airstrikes, and our capture of Nicolas Maduro here. I guess a lot of people are wondering, did they have this on their bingo card for 2026?
I did. Now, in addition to the other positions you mentioned, I was also President Trump's Assistant Secretary of the Treasury, leading the sanctions campaign against Maduro in the first administration. These are vicious, vicious criminals. And it is fantastic that Delta conducted this raid starting at 2 a.m. in the morning. By sunrise, they had exfiltrated Maduro and his kingpin wife to face charges in the United States for narcotics trafficking and terrorism-related activities. Now, your previous guest talked a little bit about regime change. The regime has not yet changed. Delcy Rodriguez is now the acting president. She's the vice president. And I have to tell you, she's as vicious as Maduro and a hell of a lot smarter. Delcy, among other things, has been in charge of Sabine, the Internal Intelligence Service. She has presided over Helicoid, which is the torture center that has tortured thousands of Venezuelans and Americans on her watch. And she's still there. So we're not yet done, but this was a major blow. It's rattled the Venezuelan regime. You know who else it's rattled? The Iranians.
Yeah, before we get to that, though, Fred, I just want to get your initial reaction to the operation, the Delta Force extraction of the president. This is unlike anything we've ever seen before, with the closest comparison being from 1989. So just your reaction to the operation here.
That's exactly right. This was a remarkable intelligence and military success to have the detailed information on Maduro's location. Experts outside of the government thought this was impossible because Maduro was so heavily guarded by Cuban troops and Cuban intelligence officers. And I would agree with Marshall Billingslea. These troops and intelligence officers are still there, and they are protecting the remnants of the Maduro regime. But I think this will lead to a massive uprising in Venezuela. Remember, Maduro was beaten by the opposition candidate last July, 67% to 33%. He only got a third of the vote. There was no regime change today or last night. There was regime change last July, except that Maduro would not accept it. Now it's time for the people of Venezuela to take control of their country.
Yeah, and Marshall, there's also an opposition leader waiting in the wings, and one Maria Corina Machado. She won the Nobel Peace Prize in October. She's been really in hiding in Venezuela. We'll see what her role is when all is said and done here. But I have to ask, the president is speaking at 11 a.m. What do you expect to hear from him?
I think we'll learn a lot more about the details of the raid. Again, this is a massive foreign policy victory for the president. You are exactly right. I've known Maria Corina Machado since 2017. I've worked closely with her. She has the steel, the iron necessary to lead the transition, but we're not done yet. The remnants of the Cartel de los Soles are still in power. Delcy Rodriguez, her evil twin brother, Jorge Rodriguez. Let's not forget about Diosdado Caballo and Padrino Lopez, who are also wanted on multi-million-dollar bounties. They're all still there. So this is a work in progress. But I think Fred Fleitz is exactly right. When the Venezuelans take to the streets, we're going to see further change, not regime change, restoration of democracy.
Yeah, just Fred, before we bring our special guest back in, because I want to talk to you about Trump's speech at 11, but Fred, I just want you to get to speak to that as well. Incredibly valid point about Machado. You know, what can we expect to see here? What will her future look like?
Well, I hope she's able to come back into power and build a new government. And I assume that there's more to the Trump plan than simply removing Maduro, that there's a plan for a transition, that maybe offers are being made to lower level officials so they can maybe leave the country voluntarily, knowing that a revolution probably is coming with Maduro's ouster, rather than put together what may be a violent series of demonstrations before they're thrown out. So I think we're going to hear a lot when the president speaks at 11 today.
Yeah, just quickly again, Fred, I just want to follow up on that, because we just, as I mentioned at the top there, the Attorney General has asked people to take to the streets. If they in fact do take to the streets in Venezuela, is it going to be because their Attorney General did, or because that this is an uprising of the people?
The people hate Maduro. They know he's a brutal dictator. I'm sure the regime is going to try to get the people to unite behind them to support Maduro. But the people of the country voted against him overwhelmingly last year. They resent the fact that he's still in power. I don't think these will be pro-Maduro demonstrations.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.